Good morning, board, staff, and members of the public. After my statement, the chairman will open this CIP meeting and explain the rules for this electronic meeting. Please keep your microphone on mute when you are not speaking. The technical support team may proactively mute participants if the microphone is picking up background noise. Board members should check to make sure the microphone is not muted before speaking. You may text me at any time at 540-336-3948 during the meeting if you need technical support, and an IT tech will call your cell to assist. I now turn the meeting over to Chairman Sultan.
The Loudoun Water Board is meeting today by electronic means pursuant to VA Code paragraph 2.2-3708.3. Public notice and meeting access information was provided on the Loudoun Water website. A recording of the meeting is available from the board secretary. Future meetings will be in person unless indicated otherwise in the public notice. Board members wishing to speak are reminded to press unmute and identify themselves by name so that staff can accurately capture comments. Board secretary will now take a roll call attendance of the members.
Thank you. And Mr. Bonfils?
Present.
Mr. Moody?
Here.
Mr. Sultan?
Here.
Mr. Vega?
Present.
Thank you. And I'd like to acknowledge that Chairman Allen is also online.
Okay. Can I get a vote to approve, a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
Yeah, this is Keith. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay,
I'll
this is Jim. I'll second.
Can we have a roll call?
Thank you, Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Mr. Sultan,
Yes.
and Mr. Vega.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, on to action items. The first item is approval of design services task order, Sterling Park water main and sanitary lateral replacement.
Amelia, could you please request control?
Joel, do you hear me fine?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
All right, and if you'll request control.
I submitted a request. Did you get a notification?
All right, Amelia, you should have control now.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and the members of the committee. My name is Amulya Paudel, Program Managers with Capital Programs Group. I am here this morning to seek your approval of design task order for the Sterling Park water main and sanitary lateral replacement project. Some background on this project. And before this, yesterday at the Finance Committee meeting, Asset Management team, Kathleen had a wonderful presentation that went into a lot more detail on why we need these R&R projects. This is a very summarized version of that. So overall, our system, we're relatively a young utility. However, certain pockets, mostly in Sterling, the pipes there are now old and have significantly deteriorated, and they're now in need of repair, rehab, and replacement. Currently in our water system, we have about 70 miles of cast iron pipe, and the goal is to replace them over the next 14, 15 years. Last couple of years, asset management team has been working on assessing the condition of all of these linear assets and taking into consideration things like pipes age, material, break history, local site condition, and the likelihood and consequences of failure. Asset management team has put together a priority list, and as we move forward, we will be addressing each of those, the prioritized project as we move forward. And this today's project that I have here for your approval is one of those early projects. So project location. In Central System, we operate our water distribution in 4 distinct pressure zones. This project is in 510 zone, and this project is in Sterling area, generally bounded by West Church Road, West Holly Avenue, and North Sterling Boulevard. There is about a little more than 5 miles of pipe in this area here. The yellow highlighted streets are water main and sanitary sewer that we will be addressing with this project. As you can see, there are 2 sections that's not included, and I'll come back to this after my next slide. So the driver for this project, the exhibit that you see on this screen is a screenshot from our GIS. Each of those brown diamond-shaped represents a water main break that we have had in the system. As expected, most of these are in Sterling area, and even within Sterling area, if you look at this, the highlighted, the circled area, that's where we have the most concentration of breaks. I think on the last count, since we started keeping track of the breaks, we were at like 1,084 or something, and almost quarter of the breaks occurred in this general area here. So for this project, and that's the reason we prioritized this project. With this project, we will be replacing approximately 5 miles of 3 to 12-inch cast iron pipes that were installed mostly in 1962, some in early 1970s. And along with that, we will be replacing all fire hydrants, valves, service lines, and service lines on the water side. On the sewer side, we back in 2013, we rehabilitated the main sewer lines. We CIPP lined all the pipes in this area. However, at this point, the laterals that serve individual homes, they have significantly deteriorated and primarily are driving inflow and infiltration into our system. So with this project, we will be replacing all of those sanitary laterals that are within the project area. Going back to the slide, the reason we do not have these 2 sections included in this project is even within this area, these 2 streets in particular had higher concentration of breaks. So we kind of carved them out as a separate project. One board approved a couple of months ago. So these are already design is already underway, and we plan to put them into construction sometimes next year. So we just carved these out as a separate project earlier than this bigger package here I have in front of you today. I do not see raised hands, so I'll keep going with my presentation here. So this is what I have here is typical scope of work associated with a linear project like this. The consultant will be tasked with providing project management throughout the duration of the project. The design services on this task order will include aerial survey, topographic base mapping, some geotechnical investigation, and primarily preparation of bid drawings, specifications, and cost estimating. On the permitting side, most of this water line is in VDOT right-of-way in a roadway. So there will be heavy coordination with VDOT when it comes to permitting for this project and some Loudoun County permits. We are ready to bid this project. We will need some assistance from the consultant with responding to bidders' question, preparing addendum, and things like that as bid fair services also included in this task order.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
I assume that the sewer laterals and the water laterals are just to the property line. Is that correct?
Yes, we will address only up to the property line. The meter crops would be, sorry.
What happens to the sewer laterals that are on the property that are deteriorating also? customers being encouraged to change them or whatever?
The asset management team would notify the property owners that there could potentially be issues down the road, if not already. So it'll be more like notification, but in terms of actually doing something on the private side, that will not be through this task order, Mr. Chairman.
So you can still have infiltration from customers, from the customer line.
Yes.
And the only other question is, how long will people be out of water while you're constructing?
So on this project, we see most of this water line will be installed in a new trench, like a new system would be built while the current one is still in operation. So what we typically see is it'll be about 2 to 3 hours of shutdown, at most like 2 times. So it'll be fairly minimal. If we like last couple of projects we did, we replaced the pipe in the same trench. Now that requires a little bit more disruption on the customer side, but with how we see this project going, installed in a new trench, it'll be minimal. Like I said, 2 to 3 hours and maybe 2 times. And in situations like this, we always we have the standard letters we send out to property owners on what they can expect, the timing of when that shutdown is. Yeah. And if for some reason there is a shutdown that's needed longer, we look at alternatives like can this be done like at night? So if for some reason the shutdown need is longer than 2-3 hours, we look at any alternative way that exists to minimize disruption.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Moody has a question.
Yes, good morning, Amelia. The question I have, you'd mentioned some ancillary equipment such as fire hydrants would need to be replaced as well. Could you explain, is that to bring them up to code, or has been some problem identified with the fire hydrants, or is it just compatibility with, just trying to understand?
It's mostly together with the pipes. These fire hydrants were also installed like in 1960s, right? So they're like old. So it's one of those things where just wholesale replacing old infrastructure with and renewing them.
Okay, but you're not
It
seeing
is
any
not.
problems with it?
Yeah, no. These are code-wise. They're still compliant. We're still in compliance with the county fire marshal's code, but this is more like just renewing the old infrastructure is the
Okay.
driver here.
All right, thank you.
So for this project, we selected J2 Engineers. J2 Engineer is one of our civil BOA consultant, and they've performed, they've done water and sewer linear projects, several linear sewer water and sewer projects for us here just within the last couple years. They're very familiar with our engineering design manual and Loudoun County and VDOT permitting process. So for this project, what I have you here for the itemized breakdown, this is a very high level breakdown for the purpose of today's presentation. But the way we came to this is we build it from the bottom. The spreadsheet that we use goes into much granular detail, has multiple tasks, subtasks, and then like various labor categories. So that is how we came up with this fee that was acceptable to us. In this particular project's case, we had some other directly relevant project. Broadrun Farms would be an example, about the same size. So we had some other data points that we could use to compare how this fee here lines up with our past experience. So overall, we found the fee of $558,000 for this almost 5 miles of pipe replacement project acceptable. Most of the work here will be performed by J2, but they do have ECS Mid-Atlantic doing utility locating. ECS doing the geotechnical work, and Mid-Atlantic Utility doing the utility location. And I see a question there.
Mr. Vega has a question.
Yes, my question is a sustainability question. As we remove all this material, is there any residual value or recycling potential? Or does it all go to the landfill?
So the standard way we've been doing it is we leave it up to the contractor. The contractor is responsible to dispose it off. We do not have like a requirement that on how the contractor should handle it, right? So on some, say like pump station project, we have specific requirement like the equipment needs to be delivered to our warehouse and things like that, and we surplus those items. But on this linear asset renewal, the standard practice has been that we let the contractor. So there is no asbestos involved. For asbestos, there are strict requirements on how the contractor needs to handle those pipes. These are all cast iron, so we kind of leave it to the contractor to handle how they dispose the material.
Thank you.
Again, I do not see any questions, so I'll move forward to the next slide here. Now, in terms of schedule, this is a relatively a good size linear utility project. We anticipate about 18 months of design and construction, and then followed by about 4 to 5 months of bid phase from advertisement to CIP committee approval, board approval, and notice to proceed, followed by somewhere in the range of 20 to 24 months of construction for this project. The next slide here is we've been tracking this. This is in our CIP plan, 10-year CIP plan. We've been tracking this project under Water 189. The only thing I want to make a note is last year when we were doing the CIP plan, we were tracking the sanitary lateral under a different project. But over the last year, we've been talking a lot about these R&R projects, and we've come to an agreement that it makes a lot more sense to do this lateral replacement together with waterline, since you would already have all this maintenance of traffic in place and disturbance in the area. So this year's CIP will change this. So I wanted to note that in the CIP, we were tracking it in 2 different CIP numbers. And this is my last slide before the motion. So I'll take a pause for any questions. Do not see any questions. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I have the motion in front of you for your consideration.
Are there any other questions?
No, sir.
Jim, you want to read the motion? You seem to be
Sure.
ready.
I'll be happy to. I move the recommendation to the board to award a design task order for the Sterling Park Water Main and Sanitary Lateral Replacement Project to J2 Engineers, Inc. for $558,000 with an approximate 5% contingency to be controlled by the general manager for a total authorized budget of $586,000. Additional costs will require board approval. I further move that this should be placed on the consent budget. Consent motions.
I second it. This is Marty. Can we have a roll call vote?
Yes, Mr. Bonfils?
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils? Thank you. Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Mr. Sultan?
Yes.
Mr. Vega?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the next item is the study task order for Belmont Ridge Water Main Transmission Main upsizing.
Amolia, I believe you'll need to request control for this presentation since it's there it is. Okay, very good.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I'm here to seek your approval on study task order for the Belmont Ridge Road Water Transmission Main upsizing project. Joel, for some reason, I don't think I have control on the slides here.
Did you double click? There we go.
Oh, okay. Yep, it works. Thank
Very
you.
good.
So project location. This project here is in the 538 pressure zone. It's generally located along Belmont Ridge Road between Route 7 and Goose Creek Water Treatment Facility. Some background on the project here. As you see on the exhibit here to the right, there are three distinct water segments in this general project corridor. Segment 1, the red highlighted segment, that's about 2,200 feet of 20-inch ductile iron pipe installed in 1973. And then segment 2 down here, highlighted yellow, is 7,600 linear feet of 20-inch ductile iron pipe that was installed in 2019. That was beneficially accepted by Loudon Water in 2019. And sandwiched between these two segments is approximately 3,200 feet of 36-inch pipe that was also beneficially accepted in 2019. I want to give a little bit more background on these projects. So these two segments that were beneficially accepted by Loudon Water in 2019, they were relocated. They were installed in their current location, along with the county's Belmont Ridge Road widening project. The water line, we accepted it in 2019, but it was actually installed by the county roadway contractor in 2018. And the coordination about this relocation started even further back in 2015, 2016. At the time, our utility master plan, we had just about started updating our utility master plan. Near the time this water line got installed in 2018, our master plan, we had recommendations from the master plan, which recommended upsizing the pipe to 36-inch. Loudon Water did make an attempt to do so. However, it was pretty late in the process in terms of roadway construction. And the cost proposal we got from the contractor was unacceptably high to upsize all of the pipe. So at the time, based on the needs at the time, again, this was before JLMA came into our service area. So based on the need at the time, we decided to upsize only this segment that's in between the red and yellow highlighted segment. The remainder 7,600, it was installed as 20-inch. Like I said, we had just about gotten started with utility master plan update when these lines were getting relocated. The 2018 water distribution update did recommend 36-inch pipe along Belmont Ridge Road. In 2019, with the addition of JLMA service area, our master plan was further updated. Now, at this point, with all the new demand we were seeing with JLMA, the study identified that the 20-inch water main along Belmont was a bottleneck to the system, and recommended adding flow capacity on that corridor. With the implementation of this recommendation, what will it do to Loudon Water, right? So one thing is it'll help us meet the growing demand, which has obviously been accelerated by the addition of JLMA. And in addition to that, we are now taking steps to expand trap rock plant from 20 MGD to 32.8. And that is the next presentation Savita will have here after me. So this upsizing this would allow us to pump more higher flows from expanded trap rock to our distribution system. So we need this to support the expansion of trap rock too. So just a little bit of background on and driver on why we need this project. Any questions? Right, I'll move to the next slide. So Now, because this existing water main is relatively new, 6-7 years old, it we the hydraulic we conducted hydraulic analysis, and the hydraulically it is feasible to add flow in this corridor two ways, right? One, we can replace the existing 20-inch pipe with a larger 36-inch pipe. The other option would be to add a second set of pipe, a parallel pipe that runs generally along this existing yellow highlighted main, and that would also deliver the same hydraulically. It would work. So since there are two options, we felt the need to further look at what is more beneficial, what is more cost effective to Loudon Water, and that is what this task order I have here in front of you today is for. So the consultant will evaluate both options, cost analysis, impact on operation during construction, post-construction. They'll look at permitting needs between the two options. So basically, this here is not a detailed design. This is a pre-design study to help Loudon Water make a decision on how we want to move forward. So in this slide here, I dive a little bit deeper into activities that's involved in this task order. Like with every other task order, this will involve project management throughout the duration of the task order. We will be capturing aerial for the site with this task order, and the consultant will prepare topographic base map, some preliminary plans, and profile for the water line. They will develop cost for multiple options, alignment options, look at the constructability potential issues, permitting needs, any easement needs, additional easement. If we are to put that second pipe, it will require us to get more easement. So that will also be looked at in this tech memo. And they'll look at operational impact, replacing an existing 20-inch with 36-inch in the same trench that will cause issues during construction. So all those would be looked at, and the consultant would summarize their finding in a tech memo and provide recommendation to Loudon Water. And at that point, Loudon Water we will select, we will decide how we want to move forward with this upsizing here.
I have a question.
Do you want me to go back to the previous slide?
No, it's just a
Okay.
question. You're probably going to find it out, or maybe you already know. Is the head loss between two 20s equal to the head loss between the 36?
You know what? I don't know if Darren is on the call. I know hydraulically both of them work, but like when it comes to exact like head loss, I do not know. Darren, are you on the call? Can you help us with that?
It's okay. I was just curious.
But I can get back to you with that, with the answer, Mr. Sheldon.
Yeah, it's not critical. You guys are going to look at that because that affects the operating costs. But yeah, okay. I was just curious. Go ahead. Keep going.
Darren, did you have an answer?
No, I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay. That was just a curious question.
So for this project, we selected RK&K as the design consultant. RK&K is one of our civil BOA consultant. They recently completed a 24-inch water main extension in JLMA West area. They're pretty familiar with Loudon Water's engineering design manual and installing the permitting process in Loudon County. So again, what I have here for you is a high level breakdown of their fee. Just want to point out that survey here is 46,000, represents almost 40% of the fee. And this work survey is regardless of which option we go, this survey and did research is needed. So there are some work on this task order that would help us down the road when we go to the detailed design. So in total, we are comfortable with the fee of $116,473. And also want to point out that RKNK is using sub-consultant on this project. Rice Associates will provide survey and deed research services. Project schedule. So we anticipate this study to be about 5 to 6 months. And at that time, we will come back to you again for approval of the detailed design of the project, which we anticipate to take about 16 to 18 months, followed by 4 or 5 months for bid phase, and then about 18 to 20 months of construction. So it's a long road ahead, but this is generally where we think the schedule for this project would be. So last slide here. This project is also in our 10-year CIP plan. We are tracking it under Water 86. And this is the last slide before the motion. So I'll take a pause again for any questions. Do not see any questions. Mr. Chairman, I have the motion in front of you.
I'll make the motion this time, since there are no questions. I move the recommendation to the board to award a study task order for the Belmont Ridge Water Transmission Main Upsizing Project to RK&K Incorporated for $116,473 with an approximate 5% contingency to be controlled by the general manager for a total authorized budget of $122,300. Additional costs will require board approval, and I recommend that this go on the board consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second, Vega.
Jewel, the roll call?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Mr. Sultan,
Yes.
and Mr. Vega.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The next item is Trap Rock Water Treatment Facility up. Whoops. Okay, the next item is approval of design task order, Trap Rock Water Treatment Facility operating expansion to 32.8 MGD, design task 1.
Good morning, everybody. Just want to check that everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
we can
great.
hear you.
All right, and I did request control.
And if you double click, you should have control now.
Okay, great. Oops.
Thanks.
There we go. All right, so good morning, everybody. Jessica Edwards-Brandt and I are here today seeking approval of a design task order for the uprate of the Trap Rock Water Treatment Facility to 32.8 MGD. This is the first design task order, and we will come back next year with a second request. So Jessica is going to provide some background on our water supply and the drivers behind this project, and then I will walk you through the task order. Just for reference, Jessica is our Director of Water Operations. So I will go to the next slide, Jessica.
Thank you, Kavita. Good morning. So I oversee the operations and will be providing background on this design task order to increase the Trap Rock treatment capacity from 20 million gallons a day to 32.8 million gallons a day. So this is the project location slide. Trap Rock is located on the western portion of our service area right off of Sickland Road. Next slide, Kavita. So a little bit about our supply background. So to supply Loudoun Water Central System, we have 3 sources. I'm going to go out of the order of the bullets here that are listed on this slide. The first is Fairfax Water, and we can purchase up to 50 million gallons a day from Fairfax Water. Our second source is the Trap Rock water treatment facility, which is permitted to treat 20 million gallons a day. And then our third source is the Goose Creek Reservoir, which is an emergency source only. And Goose Creek can be fed from Beaver Dam Reservoir, which can be pumped and treated at the Trap Rock treatment facility. So on the raw water side of things, Trap Rock's Potomac River Pump Station is permitted to withdraw 40 million gallons a day from the Potomac River. And in addition to that, our Milestone Reservoir will provide infrastructure to store water from the Potomac and then pump to Trap Rock up to 40 million gallons a day. And that Milestone Reservoir is projected to be online in 2028. So Loudon Water's approach as part of the Potomac water supply was to build Trap Rock to 20 million gallons a day, but design it so that increasing capacity would be straightforward and planned. And we are now at this point where we need to get ready to expand. So let's move to the next slide, talk about the drivers for this project. So the operations team with planning and engineering has been monitoring demands in the central system. And as we started to see demands increase, we began to work with our regulator, Virginia Department of Health, to execute a year-long study to prove out that Trap Rock could produce 32 million gallons a day with minimal impact to our processes and also minimal construction. So we started the year-long study in 2022 and we finished in 2023. We've worked very closely with VDH, our regulator, to work through that process, and they are in agreement with what we're doing. They are also looking at our demands and our production. And so they are in support of our proposal for increasing our infrastructure. So let's take a look at the demands that we're seeing on this slide. So the bottom line, so this is our whole central system water demand production. And so the bottom line is our average day demand. So in 2025, we're at around 29 million gallons a day. And in 2035, we're at around 39 million gallons a day. So we can easily supply the system with Fairfax water. But we like to use Trap Rock, obviously, because we have a lot of growth in the western part of our distribution system, and Trap Rock helps with that. It also helps with ease of operations. So we always have a percentage of Trap Rock water in our distribution system along with Fairfax water. So as we start to move along in years from 2025 to 2035, we're starting to increase the production coming from Trap Rock. And we're not getting near our maximum permitted capacity of 20 million gallons per day, but we're inching a little bit closer, and that's just average day demands. So if we're looking at the max day demands or anything between the average and the max day demands, so for 2025, we're at around 50 million gallons a day, and 2035 max day, we're projected around 70 million gallons a day. We're at the 2020 or 2035 mark, we're approaching our max capacity. And our regulators and also us as operators and a water supplier from a comfort level, we don't want to operate our systems at max capacity. We want to have a buffer there to help us. And so I think this slide is a really good example of how Loudon Water is doing a really great job of planning. This is the perfect time for us to start working on this expansion, and it will line up really nicely with the Milestone Reservoir. And that's one other thing that we want to consider is resiliency and redundancy. If for some reason we lost the supply from Fairfax Water, which usually means there's something going on the Potomac River, we would have the ability at a 32 MGD plant capacity to be able to supply the distribution system on an average day for a couple of years before we hit those demands. But it also lines up really nicely with Milestone Reservoir and being able to have a resilient infrastructure. And with that, I'll pass it to Savita so she can talk about the project.
Thank you, Jessica. Okay, so as Jessica said, the Loudon Water staff spent a year, working with VDH and CDM Smith to understand really what we could push through the trap rock plant as it currently is configured and meet all of the regulatory requirements. And at the end of the study, the results showed that we could get to 32.8 MGD. VDH did approve that in the middle of 2024. And so we're now embarking on a project to really get us to that expansion. This expansion step was anticipated during the original plant. And as Jessica said, we're able to do this without really modifying or adding really any process tankage. It's really all upgrades and expansion of supporting facilities. So this is the general scope of work for the project. So there are various design elements listed here, and we'll do some upgrades to the UV system and the ozone system. We'll also expand the permanganate storage, which is out at the raw water intake. We'll add some additional sulfuric acid storage and some pumping. And then we'll add some additional pumping capacity for the finished water and the recycle pumping facilities. And we're also going to do some hydraulic analysis through the plant, and then some SCADA and electrical improvements. And then because the plant has been in operation for about 6 years now, there's some O&M improvements that staff would like to make if we're going to come in and do a project. So we did decide to split this design into 2 task orders. It will ultimately be one design package at the end. We'll have one construction package, but we elected to split it into 2 design task orders so that some of the items on this list, we can kind of get to a, say, 60% design fairly quickly, and other items we need to do a little bit more analysis and make some decisions. And so we wanted to be able to do, I guess, kind of like a preliminary engineering first, and then scope the final design in a second task order. So this is just a high-level breakdown of the major activities that the consultant will perform. So obviously, we always have project management. They'll also do a review of the plant, look at the as-built and shop drawings and the hydraulic model. There's also going to be a lot of coordination with VDH as we're moving through the design, and they're identifying the various pieces of equipment that we need and doing some sizing and modeling. This will culminate in a written report that'll include an evaluation of all the alternatives, as well as plan and section drawings, process and instrumentation diagrams, and one-line diagrams. And then for each element, sorry, we're sharing an office here. Sorry about that. So we will also have a cost estimate developed for each of the alternatives if there is a decision for us to make, and then an overall cost estimate. They'll also perform constructability reviews, start working on permitting, and assess operational impacts. So this is a high-level breakdown of our fee, and this was put together in a similar fashion to all of our task orders. We sit down with a consultant and we write the scope of work, and once we're satisfied that all of the necessary elements are captured, the consultant then begins to work on the fee. So the fee is developed in a bottom-up approach. They estimate hours per discipline for each design element, and then they submit that to us. We do a review. We usually do some back and forth and some negotiation until we get to the final fee. So staff has reviewed this in detail, and we find that this is acceptable. And as I mentioned, we will come back in 2025 for the remainder of the design. Okay, here, whoops, sorry about that. So I do have a schedule here for you. So this first design phase will take approximately 6 months, and then we will come back and seek additional funding for the remainder of the design. That will include additional funding for permitting and for the bid phase, where we will put the construction package out to bid. We expect construction to take approximately 18 to 24 months. And as Jessica said, this is great timing. We're hoping a milestone right now is scheduled to complete in, I think, end of Q2, Q3 of 2028. So this project, this construction will wrap up shortly after that and will come online shortly after milestone comes online. So here is our CIP project snapshot slide. This is part of our 10-year CIP, and we have $2.1 million for planning and engineering. And this is the last slide I have before I go to the motion. Let's see any questions or hands raised. So here is the motion.
Mr. Sultan, are you muted, sir?
Oh, yes. Are there any questions?
I have no questions.
No.
No questions for me either.
Okay, I'll make the recommended motion. I move the recommendation to the board to award a design task order for the Trap Rock Water Treatment Facility uprating expansion design task 1 to CDM Smith for $497,984 with an approximate 5% contingency to be controlled by the general manager for a total authorized budget of $523,000. Additional costs will require board approval. And with the agreement of the rest of the committee, I'm recommending this go to consent on the board agenda.
This is Jim, I second.
Can we get a
Thank you.
roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Mr. Sultan,
Yes,
and Mr. Vega.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Rick or Sam, would you like to request control? All right, and double
Yes.
click.
capital construction report.
Very good.
All right. Good morning, members of the committee. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, fine.
So I'm Rick Zafel, and myself and Sam Flores will give the capital construction report here for the second quarter of this year. So our agenda for this morning, we'll start off with several project snapshots of some of the smaller projects that have been in construction here through the second quarter. Then we'll go into a little bit greater detail on the Milestone Reservoir and Pump Station project, as well as the Broad Run expansion to 15 million gallons per day treatment capacity. And then we'll wrap up here with our quarterly summaries of active, completed, and the upcoming projects. And so our first project snapshot here is the Broad Run reclaimed water pump station capacity upgrades. And so this project is well along in construction here through the second quarter. We have almost spent the entirety of the contract value, and some of the completed work activities during the second quarter were the installation of the variable frequency drives to wrap up the electrical infrastructure, as well as we finished the HVAC equipment installation, and then continued on with painting and coating and completed the commissioning as well, or testing and startup of the new facilities. And so all that remains for the third quarter here is punch list and project closeout. And so this project has already served us very well, especially during some of the very hot days in July. And so we expect this project to be completed here in the third quarter. And so that would be shared in the third quarter report coming up in October. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Sam to walk through several projects.
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
I'm assuming we're 98% done since we're 98% value through.
We are. The project, yes.
Thanks, Rick. Kiera, I have requested control.
And Sam, if you'll double click.
Yep.
Yep.
Thanks, Kier. Good morning, everyone. Oh, getting a little bit ahead of myself here. I will present on a few projects before taking a little bit of a deeper dive into Milestone Reservoir. And so we'll start with Beaver Dam Reservoir Park, and the headline on this one is we are very close. At the end of our Q2 reporting period, we had completed all structural and landscaping work, just the bulk of the scope of this project. There was some minor architectural work and corrective work on the parking lot asphalt surface that has since then been completed. And at the current date, it's only the administrative requirement of obtaining occupancy permit from the county that's delaying substantial completion. So we're very close. After that, we have a short period of punch list work that's anticipated with a target eventual completion date in early September, which would obviously be followed by coordination with Nova Parks for the grand opening of the facility. We'll follow that with Paragon Park Transmission Main Interconnect. This project achieved a substantial completion during the reporting period in June 6th, well ahead of its contractual deadline of July 4th. As a little bit of a extra report beyond Q2, it did achieve final completion on the 9th of July. So it was well ahead of schedule across the board. Budget-wise, we were just a little bit over 1% on changes over construction cost. And so very successful project overall, one of those rare instances of a project completing within its original schedule. And so I'd like to recognize our project manager, Matt Oshegi, for his efforts in resolving the issues that we did have along the way to make this project a big success. Next up, we have a little bit of a deeper dive into Milestone Reservoir and Pump Station. So the intent here is to provide a quarterly update to the CIP committee along with all of our construction quarterly updates. So this is, I believe, the second entry in what will become a series of updates that we'll provide here. And at the end of Q2, Clark, our CMAR, had a lot of success in getting mobilized and getting hitting the ground running to get some critical work activities completed early. We do have the setup of temporary facilities, power, internet, trailers, all that has been completed now. Initial site work, access crossing for the across the creek for the initial setup. We've started our construction of our perimeter retaining wall and our permanent bridge, as well as, and I think you'll see on the next slide here, the start of our pump station shaft, which is eventually going to become a 270-foot deep, 35-foot diameter pump shaft with 3 tunnels, as we've presented to the committee in the past year during our pre-construction phase. So right now, in terms of budget, we have not incurred any additional cost to date. Sorry about that. And we are about 10% spent, which represents a little less than 10% in actual progress. There is obviously some bonds and insurance costs that were on the higher side of our typical project that we dispersed at the beginning of the project. But we are making good progress and currently tracking about 2 weeks ahead of schedule and our critical path. So in terms of communication between parties, so far, pretty successful overall. 60 RFIs and 200 plus submittals reviewed at the end of our reporting period. The intent there, of course, is, we have a long project, but that doesn't completely preclude us from running into supply chain issues that are still somewhat prevalent on the electrical equipment side. And so we're trying to stay well ahead of any issues down the road there. In terms of communication with Trap Rock and the Potomac Raw Water Pump Station, we anticipate the bulk of that coordination is going to take place when we start the commissioning phase of the facility, which is expected to be around Q3 of 2027. So nothing to report on that. As I said, we are ahead of schedule currently. Big kudos to our subcontractor Drill Tech for really taking the bull by the horns on the tunneling work and getting us going there. So far, no unresolved claims. Had a few, but it's all been worked through to date. No delays claimed or reported. And in terms of change orders, none executed to date or at the end of the reporting period, but we have negotiated a few changes that we anticipate will be incorporated towards the end of Q3, and so we will report on those during our next update. And with this last slide here, the intent here is to bring a sort of a preview of the shaft excavation to the committee. This is actually a model. It's a pre-rendered preview of a model that has been generated by our inspections team using LiDAR. And nowadays, our inspectors can attach LiDAR scanners to iPads and things like that, and really get very quick, detailed records of the subsurface condition as we mine down the shaft. And before this, what you see on top here, the shotcrete liner that's initially applied along the circumference of the tunnel to protect miners. It's going to get a final liner after that, but as we go down, we are building that shotcrete. We are concealing the surface of the rock, and so this LiDAR scan that we will be continuing through the length of the vertical shaft and horizontal tunnels is going to allow us to go back and have that detailed reference of subsurface conditions. We can take simple measurements and just go back and assess anything that we need to down the road to resolve claims or just in general have that record. So the intent here is to continue to present sort of a, maybe time lapse is not the right term, but an update along with each construction quarterly update to take you guys on a journey as we go down the 270-foot shaft depth and the horizontal tunnels. And with that, before I turn it over to Rick, I'll take any questions from the committee.
I have a question. Are we creating a digital twin of the after construction for our record keeping and maintenance?
Do you mean of the shaft itself, Mr. Vega?
And the piping, yes.
Yeah. So in terms of piping and all the other infrastructure, we do have a task to provide a record drawings of the facility. We do have a pre-rendered model of the design that could, in theory, be as-built it, if you will, to reflect final conditions and any changes, but I don't think it's quite something that we have in our scope to update the model itself. It could be, perhaps depending on how we are doing on our CA budget towards the end, we can evaluate whether that's something that'll bring value to us for the future.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, Rick, I'll turn it over back to you.
Okay. There we go. Okay. So for key information for our Broad Run expansion project here. So this project has been in construction for several years now. Our change order total is 2.7 million here through the second quarter. And so that brings our revised contract value just under 79 million. And through the end of the second quarter, of this year. We're about 97% spent in terms of the contract price. And then in terms of contract time, the substantial completion due date is next month, September 20th. And so through the end of June, we were 95% complete in terms of time as it relates to substantial completion. And then final completion, which is due 180 days after substantial completion, that is due in mid-March of next year. And so through the end of June, we were 84% consumed on contract time relative to final completion. Any questions there? Okay, so now we're going to take a look back at the project status here. So what I've got in front is a view of the project's sort of pre-construction here. So this shows all the different work areas as red or not started. This would be the view as of the summer of 2020. And also not shown on this graphic is all the yard piping that really couldn't be depicted on this graphic, but there were several miles of yard piping, including large diameter piping, that were also part of the project, in addition to all the work areas shown in red. And so if we advance the progress through the end of the first quarter of this year, so that this would be through March 31st, you can see that green and yellow are the predominant colors here for completed work and also work that's in commissioning or testing and startup. However, we still have a couple areas that are in construction and one area that was not started. And now jumping to the end of June, of course, we still have green and yellow dominating here, and we're down to just one area in construction currently. So we're really in the final stages of this project as we move through the second quarter and into the third quarter of this year. All right. And now for our project summary here. So communication is still very good between the owner and the contractor on this project. And of course, we've used the contract tools to the maximum here with to foster that communication. So we've completed 590 or so requests for information and answered those questions that the contractor has submitted to us. And then also we've reviewed approximately 2,185 submittals that the contractor has provided and returned those to the contractor. In terms of coordination with the plant and with operations to perform this retrofit project here, so we have executed around 610 individual coordination and shutdown requests that have impacted different parts of the plant as necessary to facilitate the construction. In terms of our construction completion efficiency, so the contractor is 85% complete in terms of punch list items. And what that tells us is the contractor has done a very good job to work on those items required for final completion really in advance of substantial completion. So that's a good indicator that the contractor is in a strong position to not have to use that entire 180 days to get to final completion after substantial completion. So a good sign for completion of the project there. Claims and disputes, we don't have any outstanding claims and disputes. We've been able to resolve all of the claims that the contractor has submitted thus far. In terms of our completion, we're tracking to be about a month late as of the contractor's latest project schedule update. So we're looking at late October, early November as the proposed finish date as of now. And then we still are at 14 change orders executed so far on the project. Any questions about this information?
Yeah, I have one question. With the coordination and shutdown, have we had any permit violations as a result of it, or have we avoided all of that?
We have not had any permit violations that have been a direct consequence of the project. So we've done a very good job to maintain plant operations alongside of these disruptions and shutdowns and tie-ins and such that have been necessary to keep the construction moving forward.
I assume our plant personnel should get a kudo on that.
Absolutely. Fabulous job by our operations and our maintenance team at Broad Run and the contractor as well. Really, you know, the parties have worked well together to move this project forward and, you know, deal with a lot of the complicated aspects of the project while keeping the plant running. So,
Yeah. All right, thank you.
mhm. Okay. We'll move ahead here to our active construction projects here. So what we've got is the list of the 12 projects that were active in construction through the second quarter here. And so the columns on the left, the 3 columns on the left are related to contract time and schedule. And then the 5 columns on the right are information related to contract price and contingency utilization and change orders. And I'll provide this information here on the Broad Run roofing project. So that project was late. There were some delays, but we have reached agreement with the contractor to reconcile the delays and nearly close that project out at this point. So the roofing project should appear on the closed projects list for the third quarter report.
And yes, hi, this is Keith. You had mentioned there were delays. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what the cause of the delays?
Sure. The primary delay on this project was the skylights. The contractor had some trouble administratively getting those ordered. And then, of course, that led to the delay of the delivery, and the fabrication also of the skylights took a bit longer than anticipated. So those things combined to delay the project. The main scope, the roofing work and the roofing replacements, which was sort of the main scope of work in that project, was actually completed on time. It was really the skylights that were the driver for the delay.
And it doesn't appear there were any additional cost to Loud Water. Is that correct?
That is,
related to delays.
that's correct. Yeah, there. And I'll just add this, that the contractor was held responsible for some of the delay. So there is a reduction in the contract value associated with that. So that is a piece of this negotiated settlement that I mentioned.
Okay. And is that why I'm seeing 94% spent? Is that related to the, sounds like performance deductions? Is that?
Yes, yes, in part that is.
Okay.
And so yeah, so when this project is complete, there will be a portion of the 1.876 million that is subtracted from the contract value to facilitate the final settlement. Does that answer your question, Mr. Moody?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions on these 12 projects?
As usual, I wonder how you guys can keep change order percentage down at 1.2%. I'm just amazed.
Yeah, Mr. Sultan, we just do our best to administer the contract as fairly and as equitably as we can. And that's how we go about delivering these projects.
I know I say that almost every month, but I'm always amazed.
Yeah. Thank you.
Maybe a little bit of credit to well-administered design project before we take it to construction. You know, good design documents help out a lot as well.
No, that's
Certainly.
true. Yeah.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got 2 more slides here. Just we had one project achieve completion here during the second quarter, the East Beach Road Sewer Replacement Project. And so this one, this will be the last mention of this project as we reached final completion in the second quarter. And that's the final, kind of the final stats on that project. Any questions there? Okay, and then last slide here is just the look ahead for anticipated projects that would start construction in the third or fourth quarter of this year. And so we've got two that that will be starting construction here over the next 6 months or so. And that is all that we have this morning. Any questions or any additional questions?
No, thank you.
Nope, not, doesn't seem like it. Good job.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lipinski, I always assume is doing this.
I am here today, Mr. Chairman. I was going to mention that I think I'm batting cleanup today, but actually being the fifth item, I'm not sure that constitutes cleanup. So, but nonetheless, I got two items today for the capital spending summary. First of all, we'll talk about spending through July, so just a little bit past the midpoint of the year. As you can see on the graph, the red line in the month of July is at about 90% of the projection. The actual spending was a little bit over 59 million through July, and the projection for that time frame was about 64 million. So kind of been tracking about 90% all year long so far. So that's been great. And that's where we kind of are through the, again, through the end of July. So I'm going to presume there aren't any questions and ask, Kiara, can you just scroll over to the second page of the presentation? Yeah. Okay, so the second thing that I'll talk about is the mid-year reforecast. So this time of the year, every year, we take an opportunity to look at our projected spending for the second half of the year and see whether or not we can update those numbers. And we've done that. In our reprojection is that rather than the 148 million, which was in the budget, that is what you approved, that we think we're going to spend about 128 million at the end of the year. So about 86%, kind of coming in close to the 90% that we've been tracking all year. You can see here, there's some characterization of the spending variances in the four categories. But the total that we project that we will not need at the end of the year is just a little bit over $20 million of the original 148. And again, that puts the reforecast at about 127 million or 128 million. So that's it. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them. But we've been doing really well this year, and kudos goes to staff for being able to do a great job of originally forecasting and then trying to implement the spending in a way that matches with the original forecast. So.
The only question I have is go back to the graph. Yeah, to the next one up. I noticed it tails off at toward the end. It seems to be tailing off. Is there any significance in that?
No, the reason that the graph shows it's so steep in the original projection is that there's spending that actually we pay for in January of the following year. So in this case, the spending that would be processed in January of 2025 is shown on this graph as being charged back to December because we bill it, even though the invoices are processed in December, it's for work that was done in the previous year. I'm sorry, the invoices are processed in January, it's for work that was done the previous year in the December timeframe. So sometimes that's a little harder to project. I don't think there's anything significant about the kind of tail off at the end. We'll see. It may actually it may mirror the original forecast, or it may kind of just maintain sort of more of the straight line that it's being shown. But I don't think anything significant to it.
All right.
No, I would like to add that this has been a great meeting, lots of information and lots of exciting stuff ahead. So I want to echo everyone else's comments on the committee that you guys have done great work and continue to do great work. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay.
Jewel, is there anything else on the agenda? I don't have the agenda in front of me.
Yes, sir. There is just the tentative agenda and then adjourn the meeting.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to interject if I could. I don't want to revisit the design portion of action item 3, but it's kind of triggered an idea that we should consider and maybe take a look forward. Maybe I'll ask staff and you as the chair to probably endorse what I'm thinking about, which is, we're replacing 5 miles of water line. And I'm not just thinking about the residual value of 5 miles of old water line, but also about having sustainability goals for projects of that magnitude, and becoming leaders in having sustainability goals and recycling and reusing some of these materials. It's not like we're replacing 2,000 feet of water line. This is a 5-mile project. And I think it's our responsibility to at least ask the question whether we should include that in our specifications, or we should have some goals for recycling and reuse of the materials that we are replacing. So I'm curious to hear, and I'm happy to adjourn afterwards, whether that's worthwhile exploring.
This is Marty. I definitely think that's worthwhile.
Yep.
I have to agree with you.
Yeah, Mr. Vega, thank you for the suggestion, and we'll definitely take a look at it as we work through this design.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other thoughts? Joel, could you have a roll call for adjourning?
So Mr. Vega, was that a motion to adjourn?
Yes, ma'am, it was. I just didn't say it.
Okay, and then second.
I'll second the motion to adjourn. This is Jim.
Thank you. And the roll call vote, Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Mr. Sultan,
Yes.
and Mr. Vega.
Yes, and have a wonderful week and weekend.
Thank you.
3-day weekend. So enjoy.
3-day weekend. Yeah, enjoy.
Woohoo.
And one thing, we have to thank Jewel for keeping this together.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you, Jewel.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Everyone have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
Right.
Thank
See ya.
you.